The night was quiet in the small Texas town. A warm wind blew across the empty road as Eli Turner drove his old pickup truck home. He was a simple man, a rancher who loved his land and his animals. Every evening he drove back from town with supplies, humming old country songs, but this night felt different. The sky looked strange, heavy clouds, flashes of silver light far above. Then, out of nowhere, something bright tore through the clouds and crashed behind his barn. Eli hit the brakes, his heart racing. The truck headlights cut through dust and smoke. He jumped out, holding his flashlight and a wrench, the closest thing he had to a weapon. The air smelled like metal and fire. Behind the barn, a deep hole smoked in the dirt, and there, half buried, was something that looked like a ship. Not from this world. Eli took a few slow steps forward. The surface of the craft shimmered like liquid glass, glowing faint blue. He could hear faint crying, not from the ship but from nearby. He turned his light and saw a figure stumbling through the dust. It was a woman, tall, thin, with silver marks on her skin that glowed softly in the dark. Her clothes were torn, elegant but strange, like something from a dream. In her arms she held a small child, and two more followed. Trembling and afraid, Eli froze, not knowing if he should run or help. The woman looked at him with eyes full of fear and pride. She spoke softly, her voice shaking. "Please, they will come for us." Before he could ask who, she fell to her knees, weak and trembling. The children started to cry louder. Eli knelt beside her, feeling lost. He didn't understand what was happening, but something inside him, something deep and human, told him he couldn't walk away. He looked at the strange ship again, smoke rising from cracks in its side. Then back at the woman and her children. They didn't look dangerous, only scared and hurt. He said softly, "Ma'am, I don't know who you are, but you can't stay here out in the open." The woman tried to speak again, whispering, "The hunters. They are near." Her words made his stomach twist. He didn't know what kind of hunters she meant, but when he turned toward the hills, he saw lights, bright red lights moving fast across the sky. Without thinking more, Eli helped her to her feet. "Get in my truck right now," he said firmly. She hesitated, confused, looking at the old vehicle. He repeated louder, "Now." She obeyed, helping her children climb into the truck. Eli ran to the driver's side and started the engine. The headlights flickered as they rolled down the dusty road toward the old barn. Behind them, a strange mechanical sound filled the air. A red glow moved closer, humming like a swarm of bees. Eli looked in the mirror. Something was following them. He pushed the gas harder, dust flying behind the truck. The woman turned to look too and whispered something in her own language. The youngest child covered his ears, crying. The sound grew louder, metal wings slicing through the air. They reached the barn and Eli pulled the truck inside. Shutting the big doors behind them, he turned off the lights, leaving only the moonlight through the cracks. Everyone was breathing hard. Outside, the humming stopped. For a moment there was silence, then a soft clicking sound, like something crawling across the roof. Eli raised his wrench, his heart beating fast. The woman placed her hand on his arm, glowing softly. "Do not go out," she whispered. "They can see through metal." He didn't understand, but he listened. They waited, holding their breath. Through the tiny gap in the wooden wall, Eli saw a red beam move slowly over the fields. Something out there was searching, scanning, hunting. He could feel it, like being watched by a wild animal. The children huddled close to their mother. The youngest one whispered, "Mama." "I'm scared." She smiled weakly and said, "Be brave." "Little one." Eli's hand shook as he gripped the wrench tighter. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a hero, but tonight, he felt something strange. A fire in his chest, a promise to protect. Minutes passed. Then the red light faded away. The sky went dark again. The sound gone, Eli exhaled slowly. He looked at the woman and said, "You're safe here, at least for now," but she didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on something behind him, wide and terrified. Eli turned, following her gaze toward the corner of the barn. There, through the broken boards, a single red circle of light glowed. Moving closer, it was not from the sky. It was inside the barn. A small floating machine hovered in the shadows, clicking softly, its red eye scanning the room. Eli whispered, "What is that?" The woman said in a trembling voice, "The hunter's eye." The drone turned its red light toward them, and the barn filled with a sharp electronic scream. Eli grabbed the woman's hand and shouted, "Run!" The children screamed as the machine moved closer. The ground shook as another light appeared outside the barn door. Brighter this time, Eli didn't know what was happening. But one thing was clear. Whatever had fallen from the sky had brought danger with it. And now that danger had found them. The night had turned colder. Eli Turner's old truck bounced across the rough dirt road as he drove away from the glowing red light behind the barn. Inside the truck, the alien woman held her children close, whispering soft words in a language Eli could not understand. The little ones shivered, their silver blue eyes full of fear and confusion. Eli's hands gripped the steering wheel tight, his heart still racing from what he had seen. That flying red eye, that strange scream, it was nothing human. He didn't know what kind of danger he had just invited into his life. But deep inside, he knew he couldn't let those kids die out there in the dark. He drove until the dirt road ended near an old windmill. Beyond it stood a half-broken barn that no one used anymore. He had built it long ago as a storage shed for feed and tools. Now it would have to become a hiding place. He stopped the truck and looked at the woman. "You can stay here for now," he said quietly. "No one comes this far." The woman nodded weakly, her voice tired. "Thank you, human." Her accent was soft but strange, every word shaped differently. Eli helped her and the children out of the truck. Leading them inside the barn, the place smelled of old hay and dust. Moonlight came through cracks in the wood, making thin lines of silver on the ground. The oldest child, maybe 10 years old, touched one of the barn walls, and for a moment it glowed softly under his hand. Eli stared, amazed. What did he just do? The woman sighed. "My son can sense energy. He helps find safe places." She sat down, exhausted, her breathing shallow. The children curled up beside her, their strange blue skin glowing faintly in the dark. Eli gave them a blanket and some water. He didn't ask questions. Not yet. After a long silence, she finally spoke. "My name is Saren Valora," she said, her eyes staring at nothing. "I was someone important once before the war." Eli frowned, sitting across from her on an old wooden crate. "What kind of war?" he asked carefully. Saren looked at her children before answering. "A war between stars, between those who wanted freedom and those who wanted power." Her voice shook. "My husband fought for our people. He died when our world fell." Eli could hear the pain in her words, even if he didn't understand the whole story. Saren continued, "We were wealthy once, powerful even. But power means nothing when you lose everything." She looked at him, her silver eyes reflecting the moonlight. "We fled across the stars, searching for a world untouched by greed and war." Her hand trembled as she touched her child's head. "But they followed us." Eli leaned forward. "Who?" "The hunters," she whispered. "Machines built to track the last survivors, to erase us completely." Eli felt a chill crawl up his back. "Then they're coming here," he said. Serene nodded slowly. "Yes, but we will not survive another flight." He stood up and looked around. Thinking fast, the barn had an old storm cellar under the floor. Used for hiding during tornadoes, he moved a few wooden planks aside and opened the hatch. "You can hide down there if they come again," he said. Saren looked uncertain. "And you?" "I'll be outside," Eli said simply. "This is my land. I'll protect it." She stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to understand his courage. Finally, she nodded and helped her children climb down into the dark cellar. Hours passed and the night grew deeper. Eli sat outside on the porch, shotgun resting across his knees. He watched the empty horizon, waiting for lights, for movement, for anything. The desert wind howled through the dry grass. He thought about what she said, and a war between stars. Machines that hunted families like hers. It sounded insane, yet he had seen the proof with his own eyes. A flying metal creature with a red glowing eye. No man could make such a thing inside the barn. Saren whispered softly to her children. "Sleep now, little ones," she said. "The human will keep us safe," the youngest child, half asleep, asked, "Can we trust him, Mother?" Saren smiled sadly. "He does not know fear like others. That makes him dangerous to our enemies." She brushed his hair gently, her fingers glowing faintly with light. When the children slept, she sat alone in the dark, staring at the stars through a crack in the roof. She remembered the golden cities of her home world. Now turned to ash, she whispered to herself. "We are the last of Valora." Near dawn, Eli heard something, engines in the distance. He stood up, heart pounding again, far on the horizon. Several dark shapes moved under the rising sun. It wasn't the hunters this time, it was the government. Trucks and armored vehicles rolling slowly toward his ranch. They must have seen something on their satellites. He cursed under his breath and ran back inside. "Seren," he said quickly. "Hide your kids, soldiers are coming." She froze, her eyes wide with fear. "How did they find us so fast?" she whispered. Eli didn't know the answer. But he knew one thing for sure. He wasn't about to hand her or her children over to anyone. As the sound of engines grew louder, Eli stood at the barn door, his shotgun ready. Serene and her children vanished below the floor into the cellar. Eli took a deep breath, steady and firm. The soldiers would be here in minutes. But he was done running. Whatever happened next, he was going to face it head on. And outside, under the red morning sky, dust clouds rose as the search began. The morning sun rose over the dry Texas fields. Eli Turner stood at the edge of his porch, watching the dust clouds grow bigger on the horizon. The rumble of engines filled the air, breaking the peaceful sound of birds and wind. His old heart beat faster with every second. They were coming. Soldiers, trucks, men with questions and guns. He knew it was only a matter of time before someone noticed the strange crash last night. Inside the barn, Seren Valora hid with her children in the dark cellar. She could hear the faint sound of tires on gravel. Her hands trembled as she held the youngest close. They had run from many worlds before, but never had humans come so quickly. This world, she thought, was sharper, faster, more curious than others. Eli had promised to protect them, and though she did not understand why, she believed him. Eli walked out to meet the convoy as it stopped in front of his house. 3 military trucks, 1 black SUV, and a few men in green uniforms. The leader, a tall man with a shaved head, stepped out. "Morning, Mr. Turner," he said coldly. "We're looking for something that fell around here last night." Eli adjusted his hat and spat in the dirt, pretending to be calm. "Fell? You mean like a meteor?" he asked. The officer frowned. "Something like that, sir. Maybe a drone or foreign aircraft," Eli shrugged. "Didn't see nothing but coyotes and wind." The soldiers spread out, scanning the land with strange handheld devices. One of them walked toward the barn. Eli's pulse quickened. He followed the soldier slowly, keeping his tone friendly. "Ain't much to see there. Just old hay and busted tools." The man ignored him and opened the barn door. Sunlight poured in, showing piles of hay, old boxes, and a few rusted tools. The storm cellar hatch was hidden under the straw. Barely visible, Seren and her children held their breath below. Not daring to move, every sound above felt like thunder. The soldier walked around, tapping things with his boot. Then he noticed something small, a piece of silver metal half buried in the dirt. He picked it up and turned it in his hand. "Sir, you might want to see this." Eli stepped forward quickly, trying to stay casual. "Ah, that? Just an old tractor part," he said with a laugh. The soldier raised an eyebrow. "Looks a little too shiny for that." Eli's eyes narrowed. "Look, if you're done spooking my cows, maybe you can take your fancy toys and go." The officer arrived, glancing around with suspicion. "We'll set up sensors near your property," he said. "Just in case," Eli forced a smile. "You do what you gotta do, officer." He watched them pack up, but his stomach was tight with fear. Something told him they didn't believe his story. When the last truck left, he waited until the dust settled before rushing back to the barn. He opened the hatch and whispered, "It's okay. They're gone." Seren climbed out, her eyes full of questions. "Did they see us?" she asked. Eli shook his head. "Not yet. But we gotta be careful." The oldest child stepped forward, his small face serious. "There is something outside," he said quietly. "Something watching," Eli frowned. "You mean the soldiers?" The boy shook his head. "No, not them, something else." Eli walked out and scanned the fields. The land looked calm, just waving grass and old fences. But then he noticed a strange glint on the ground near his truck. He bent down and saw it. A small round device stuck to the underside of his bumper, blinking faintly red. "Damn," he muttered under his breath. He pulled it off and held it up. Seren gasped when she saw it. "That is a tracker," she whispered. "They marked your vehicle." Eli's jaw tightened. "So they'll come back," Seren nodded. "Yes. And next time they will not ask questions." Eli threw the device into the fire pit and smashed it with a shovel. Sparks flying, he turned to her. "We'll have to move the ship." "Hide it better." Seren looked away. "The ship is broken beyond repair. Only the core still breathes. Then we hide that too," Eli said firmly. That night they worked in silence. The stars shone cold and bright overhead. Eli and Seren buried the ship's glowing heart deep under an old oak tree near the edge of the ranch. When they finished, Eli wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at her. "Why are they after you so bad?" he asked. Seren's voice was soft, almost breaking. "Because we carry what they fear most: memory, hope, and freedom." Eli didn't understand her words completely, but he felt their weight later. As the children slept in the hay, Serene sat near the fire. Watching the flames dance, she turned to Eli, her silver eyes reflecting the light. "You risked your life for strangers, why?" Eli stared into the fire, his voice quiet. "Maybe because this world forgot what helping means. Maybe it's time someone remembered." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The night was calm again, but far away. Beyond the hills, a red light flickered briefly in the clouds. Something was still searching. The hunters had not given up, and as Seren closed her eyes, she whispered, "They are coming." The desert night was quiet again, but Eli Turner could not rest. He sat on the porch with his old shotgun across his knees, eyes fixed on the dark horizon. The stars above looked calm, but he knew something terrible was waiting out there. The air still smelled faintly of smoke from the buried ship. Beside the barn, Seren Valora and her children slept close together. Hidden under blankets, Eli's mind kept turning, thinking about the words she said. Memory, hope, and freedom. He didn't understand them, but somehow, they felt like something worth fighting for at dawn. A soft blue light glowed from inside the barn. Eli walked in and saw Seren kneeling on the ground. Her hands were over a small crystal device that floated in the air. Spinning slowly, the light painted the barn walls in waves of silver and blue. Eli stepped closer. "What is that thing?" he asked. Seren looked up, her voice calm. "It's our memory core, the last of my world." He stared at the spinning light. "Like a computer?" She smiled faintly. "More than that, it holds the stories of billions, every life we lost." Eli stood quietly, feeling something strange in his chest. "So that's what they're after," he said. Seren nodded. "If the hunters find it, they will destroy it and erase us forever." Her words carried a deep sadness, the kind only survivors knew. Eli walked around the device, watching how the light moved like water. "I'll keep it safe," he said. "This is my land. I promise." Seren looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to measure his soul. "You humans," she said softly, "you still believe in promises?" Later that day, the children played quietly near the barn. Eli fixed a broken fence, pretending life was normal. But both he and Seren could feel a change in the air. Something was coming. The oldest child suddenly looked up at the sky and said, "They found us." Eli followed his gaze. A black shadow passed across the sun, moving silently. It wasn't a plane and it wasn't a bird. It was something else, something big. Seren ran to the barn and opened the hatch to the cellar. "Get down there," she said to the children, her voice calm but sharp. Eli grabbed his rifle and looked at the shadow again. It circled once and then vanished behind the hills. "They're scanning," Seren whispered. "The hunters are near." Eli's hands tightened on the rifle. "Let them come." Seren looked at him with quiet disbelief. "You would fight them?" He nodded. "I've fought drought, wolves, and men twice my size. I won't run now." For a moment she smiled, a small sad smile. "You humans are strange," she said. "You see danger and walk straight into it." Eli shrugged. "Maybe that's what makes us human." They both fell silent as the wind picked up, carrying dust across the fields. Then the earth trembled slightly. A low hum began, distant but growing louder. Eli turned to Seren. "That sound, it's the same from last night." She nodded, her eyes full of fear. "They've locked onto the memory core." The barn lights flickered. The crystal device began to glow brighter, pulsing fast. Seren reached out, trying to control it, but her strength was fading. Eli stepped forward. "Tell me what to do." She looked up at him, her voice trembling. "You can't stop them, but you can hide the truth." He didn't understand, but she pressed the crystal into his hands. "Take it," she said. "If I fall, this must live." The light felt warm, alive, almost like a heartbeat. Eli wanted to refuse, but the look in her eyes stopped him. A sharp crack of thunder echoed from the sky. Outside, the clouds twisted, forming a burning red circle. From its center, a dark metallic shape emerged, sleek and silent. Eli had never seen anything so terrifying. Seren turned to him. "That is not just a hunter ship," she whispered. "That is their commander." Eli swallowed hard. "What do they want?" "Everything," she said. "They don't just kill bodies. They erase the truth of who we were." Her voice trembled. "If they take Earth next, your kind will vanish like mine did." The ground shook as the ship descended lower. The animals fled. The wind screamed through the grass. Eli grabbed Seren's arm. "We gotta go now." She nodded, her face pale. "But where?" Eli looked toward the old canyon road. "There's a mine shaft up north. No one goes there anymore." Serene gathered her children. Wrapping them in cloaks, the youngest looked up at Eli. "Will they find us again?" He forced a smile. "Not if I drive fast enough." They rushed to the truck, the sky glowing red behind them. Eli started the engine, but before they left, Seren looked back at the barn. She whispered a few words, and the structure shimmered faintly before turning dark and still. "What did you do?" Eli asked. She said softly, "A veil, to hide what we left behind." The truck rolled out of the ranch as a massive beam of light struck the ground where the barn once stood. The explosion shook the earth, sending waves of dust across the plain. As they sped down the road, Serene held the children close and whispered, "Earth was not meant to see this war." Eli kept his eyes on the horizon, gripping the steering wheel hard. He didn't know if they would survive. But he knew one thing. Whatever truth she carried, it had now become his too. And far behind them, under the dark red sky, the first battle for Earth had quietly begun. The morning sky turned red like fire as Eli Turner's old truck sped through the empty road. Behind him, the sound of engines and thunder mixed together in a storm of chaos. The alien ship that had appeared above his land was no longer hiding. It hovered in the distance like a metal beast, dark and silent but full of death. Inside the truck, Seren Valora held her children close, whispering soft words of courage. Her silver eyes reflected the burning sky, and her voice was calm though her heart trembled. Eli's hands gripped the steering wheel tight. The road ahead was long and rough, leading toward the abandoned mine he had mentioned before. He had no plan, no weapon strong enough to fight a machine from the stars. But he had something else: stubbornness, courage, and a promise. He had sworn to protect Seren and her children, no matter what came. As they reached the edge of the canyon, the ground shook violently. A blast of light cut through the sky and struck the ground behind them. The explosion threw dirt and flame high into the air. Eli shouted, "Hold on!" as he turned the wheel hard, the truck sliding through the dust. Metal shrapnel rained down around them. Glowing red-hot in the wind, the children screamed, and Seren covered them with her arms, her skin glowing faintly as a shield formed around them. The blast wave pushed the truck sideways, but Eli kept driving. He could barely see through the smoke. "Are they following us?" he shouted. Seren looked through the broken window and saw dark shapes moving in the clouds. "3 hunters," she said, her voice tight. "Small drones, they won't stop." Eli hit the gas harder, his old truck roaring in protest. "I don't care if they're from Mars or hell," he growled. They picked the wrong rancher to mess with. The first drone descended, its red eye glowing bright. It fired a beam that sliced through the rocks beside them. Eli swerved, missing it by inches. Seren raised her hand, and a flash of blue energy burst from her palm. The beam struck the drone and it exploded in mid-air, pieces falling like burning rain. But the effort drained her. Her body shaking, Eli reached over. "Don't you pass out on me now," he said. "We need you." The second drone dived lower. Firing a volley of energy bolts, Eli shouted, "Get down!" As one of the bolts hit the back of the truck, the tailgate melted into glowing metal. The children crying in fear, Eli turned sharply into a dry ravine. Using the land's curves as cover, the drone followed. But now it was closer to the ground. Eli slammed the brakes, grabbed his shotgun, and leaned out of the window. He fired once, twice. The sound thundered through the canyon. The bullets didn't break the drone, but distracted it just enough. A moment later, the oldest child lifted his small hands and made a strange motion. The air around the drone shimmered, and suddenly it crashed into the rocks. Torn apart by invisible force, Eli looked back, amazed. "Kid, remind me not to make you mad." The boy gave a tired smile, then collapsed in his mother's arms. Only one drone remained now. Circling above like a hawk waiting to strike, Seren looked weak, her light fading. Eli parked the truck inside the shadow of an old mine entrance. Hidden under stone, Stay here, he said. I'll deal with that thing. Seren grabbed his arm. You can't fight it alone. Eli looked at her with steady eyes. Ma'am, I'm not alone. He ran out into the open. Dust swirling around him. The drone spotted him and dived fast. Its red beam charging again. Eli dove behind a pile of rocks and waited until it came close. Then he threw an old metal chain straight into its spinning center. The chain sparked, tangled, and the machine lost control. Crashing hard into the canyon floor, Eli ran to it and smashed the power core with his shotgun stock. The explosion knocked him back, flames rising into the air. Seren rushed out, calling his name. He was lying in the dirt, his arm bleeding, but he smiled when he saw her. Guess we showed them, he said weakly. She helped him up, her glowing hands healing the wound slowly. Her energy shimmered soft and blue as she whispered. Thank you, he nodded. Don't thank me yet. They'll send more. Above them. The clouds glowed red again, bigger, heavier, darker. Seren looked up and saw hundreds of small lights forming patterns in the sky. Her voice broke. That's not hunters anymore. That's an invasion fleet. Eli looked at the sky, jaw tight. Then we warn the others. Seren shook her head. Your government will not believe. They will destroy us instead. Eli thought for a moment, then said, Then we don't tell them everything. Just enough to fight back. He turned toward the horizon where smoke still rose from his ranch. His home was gone, but his purpose had grown. He looked at Seren and said, You trusted me once. Now it's my turn to trust you. She met his gaze, tired but strong. Then we fight together. The children held hands, their eyes glowing softly as if hearing something far away. The ground trembled again, and as the wind carried the smell of smoke and metal, Eli Turner, the humble rancher, stood between Earth and the storm that was coming. And in that moment, humanity's fight for survival had just begun. Smoke still rose from the horizon where Eli Turner's ranch once stood. The sky above was painted in strange red clouds that pulsed like blood. Eli stood at the entrance of the abandoned mine. Dirt on his face, his shirt torn, but his eyes sharp and alive. He had lost everything, his home, his land, his peace. But he had not lost his will. Behind him, Seren Valora and her 3 children waited in silence, their glowing eyes reflecting fear and hope at the same time. The wind carried the distant hum of alien machines. The hunters had returned, stronger, faster, more deadly. This time they weren't hiding. They wanted to make an example out of Earth. Seren looked at Eli, her voice quiet but strong. They know we're here. They'll destroy everything to reach the core. Eli wiped the sweat from his brow and said, Then we don't give them the chance. He walked to his truck, its body half burned from the earlier battle. He opened a toolbox and pulled out bundles of wires, old dynamite sticks and a dusty radio. Seren frowned. What are you doing? Eli smiled faintly. My granddaddy used to blow up mines for a living. Looks like it's time I carry the family tradition. The plan was simple. Lure the hunters into the canyon, trap them in the mine, and collapse the whole place. It was dangerous, foolish even, but it was all they had. While Eli worked on setting the explosives, Seren and her children stood by the mine entrance. The oldest child placed his hand on the ground and whispered softly. Blue light spread across the dirt like ripples on water. What's he doing? Eli asked. Seren said, He's speaking to the earth, asking it to remember where it is strong. Eli chuckled. Never thought I'd need the planet's help for a fight, but I'll take it. Hours passed. By evening, the wind turned colder, and the red clouds began to glow brighter. The hum of engines filled the air again. Louder this time, through the thick dust. Eli saw dark shapes descending, a fleet of hunter drones and a large carrier ship hovering above. Here they come, he whispered. He checked the fuse lines and gave Seren a quick nod. Once I light this, we run. Seren touched his arm gently. If you fail, the world will burn. Eli looked at her, his eyes calm. Then I don't fail. Her expression softened, and for the first time she smiled, a real human smile. You have a brave heart, Eli Turner, she said. Your kind was never meant to be slaves of fear. He nodded once, and for a moment the two stood side by side, human and alien. Ready to face the storm together, the first wave hit. Explosions shook the canyon walls as drones fired beams of red light. Eli ducked behind the rocks, returning fire with his old rifle. Bullets bounced off metal. But the noise drew their attention. Seren raised both hands. her silver skin glowing like liquid light. She sent out a wave of blue energy that rippled through the air. Throwing several drones off course, her power flared brighter than before. But every burst weakened her. Eli shouted, "That's enough! Save your strength." She ignored him, pushing harder. The ground cracked, and lightning-like lines of blue fire spread across the rocks for a moment. The machines hesitated, their sensors blinded by the light. Eli saw his chance, lit the fuse, and grabbed Seren's hand. "Run!" They sprinted through the narrow tunnel as the fuse burned behind them. The children followed, their small hands glowing, lighting the dark path. The roar of the machines grew louder as the hunters entered the mine, chasing them inside. The moment the last drone crossed the threshold, Eli dove forward, pulling Seren down. Then the earth exploded. The sound was deafening. Rocks collapsed, flames burst, and the canyon shook like thunder. Dust and fire filled the air, and for a moment everything was red and bright. Eli covered Seren with his body, protecting her from falling debris. When the noise faded, there was only silence and the crackle of fire. Hours passed before the dust settled. Eli slowly opened his eyes. Coughing, he was alive, bruised but breathing. He looked around. The mine entrance was gone. Sealed under tons of rock, Seren sat beside him, weak but alive, her children hugging her tightly. The night sky above was clear again. The red light fading slowly, Eli looked at her. "We did it," he said quietly. She nodded, her voice soft. For now, he stared at the horizon, thinking of the world beyond, cities, people, and the life he once had. "They'll come again, won't they?" he asked. Seren looked at the stars. "Yes, but now they know humanity fights back." As the first rays of morning touched the desert, the quiet rancher and the fallen alien mother stood side by side, their bodies tired, their hearts strong. For the first time, Earth had made a stand, not with weapons of power, but with courage, loyalty, and the will to protect. Eli looked at the sky and said softly, "Let them come, we'll be ready." And far above, hidden beyond the stars, something ancient stirred, watching, waiting, planning the next move. The war for Earth had only just begun. The sun rose slow over the canyon, painting the land gold and quiet. Smoke still drifted from the shattered rocks where the mine had collapsed. Eli Turner sat on the dusty ground, breathing heavy, his face streaked with soot. The battle was over, but his body hurt in every bone beside him. Seren Valora rested against a fallen stone, her silver skin dull and cracked from exhaustion. Her children slept close to her, their soft breathing the only sound left in the morning air. Eli looked around. Silence. No engines, no red lights, no humming machines, only the desert wind whispering through the grass. He had never known silence to sound so loud. The hunters were gone, buried deep under the rocks, but he knew it was only a matter of time before more came. Seren opened her eyes slowly, her voice weak. "Did we win?" Eli smiled faintly. "We survived." "That's close enough." For a while they said nothing. The children woke and climbed into their mother's arms. The youngest, a little girl with soft, glowing eyes, looked at Eli and whispered, "You saved us," Eli chuckled softly. "Guess I did, huh?" Seren smiled too, but there was sadness in her eyes. Her glow was fading faster now, the marks on her skin dimming like dying stars. Eli noticed it. "You don't look too good," he said quietly. She shook her head. "My energy is almost gone. I used too much to protect them." Eli frowned. "You rest, I'll find food, water, something." He tried to stand, but she caught his hand, her grip trembling. "No," she said. "Stay." He froze, seeing the fear behind her calm face. Her voice lowered to a whisper. "You must listen." "Eli Turner." He knelt beside her, the dry wind tugging at his hat. "What is it?" he asked. She looked at the horizon, her eyes distant. The hunters were only servants. The true enemy has not come yet. Eli's jaw tightened. "Then we'll be ready." Seren smiled sadly. "You humans, always ready to fight, never ready to lose." She touched the ground gently, and the earth under her fingers glowed faint blue. From the dirt rose a small crystal sphere, the same kind as the memory core. She placed it in Eli's hands, her voice soft as wind. "This holds the memory of my people, our knowledge, our stories. Everything that we were." Eli looked down at it, confused. "Why give this to me?" "Because you are the last person I trust," she said. "And because your kind will need to remember who you truly are when the war begins." Her words sank deep into him. He didn't understand everything, but he understood the feeling. Responsibility. The kind that stays heavy on a man's soul. He looked at her. Don't talk like that, you're gonna make it. But she smiled, shaking her head. My body cannot stay here long, but my children can. Eli swallowed hard. I'll take care of them. You have my word. Serene's eyes softened. Then that is enough. The sky above flickered faintly, streaks of silver light appearing far beyond the clouds. Serene saw them and whispered, They are calling me home. Eli looked up, but all he saw was sky. Serene turned to her children, pulling them close. Be strong, my little stars. Live, learn. Love this world. Her voice broke. Do not fear it. The children began to cry, and Eli felt something inside him break. He wanted to say something, but words failed him. Slowly, Serene's body began to glow again, not bright, but gentle. Her light wrapped around her children. Then around Eli, warm and soft, she whispered, Thank you, human, for showing me what courage means. Her voice grew faint. You have the heart of a protector, not a conqueror. The light grew stronger. Lifting her slightly from the ground, Eli reached out. Serene, wait. She looked at him one last time, her silver eyes shining like morning stars. Remember, she whispered, hope is stronger than power. Then she was gone, dissolving into the air like mist at sunrise. Eli sat still for a long time, staring at the space where she had been. The wind blew across the canyon, carrying her last words into the world. The children wept softly, and Eli pulled them close. Holding them tight, he whispered, You're safe now. I promise. As the sun climbed higher, the small crystal in his hand shimmered. Images flickered inside, cities of light, alien stars, faces he would never know. The memory of a lost civilization. Now entrusted to a simple rancher, he stood up slowly. The 3 children following him, they began walking toward the distant town. Each step left a small trail of blue light that faded behind them. Eli looked back once at the smoking canyon, the place where everything changed, he whispered to himself. You showed me what it means to fight for more than land. Then he turned toward the horizon, the crystal glowing softly in his hand. The war was not over, but Earth had found its first defender, a humble rancher with nothing left to lose, and somewhere, far above the stars, Serene Valora's voice whispered again, Humanity will rise not because it is strong, but because it dares to care.